I'm Kevin Jacobsen of Gold Derby here with Anna Chlumsky, who stars as Vivian Kent in the very popular Netflix series Inventing Anna. And there's obviously so much to dig into with this story, but I want to start with just this being such a prominent role. And, you hadn't really taken on a lead role like this in a little bit, as far as I know. And you've certainly had lead roles before, but just how daunting was it to sort of step into such a juicy role like this again?
Yeah, I think the only daunting part of it was sort of like the professional aspect of like understanding that because I was going to be on set so much, that I needed to make sure that I was, sort of like the responsible party for, the cast department. You know what I mean? Or like
Mhm.
any, or it's just the way that I sort of approach work is, we're all a crew in all these departments trying to make something together. And it's a strange thing being the actor because everybody, nothing moves if you're in the bathroom, right? Nothing happens if like you're not there.
Yeah.
And also like you don't get invited to production meetings, right? So it's,
Mm.
it was sort of like um, just knowing that I was going to be on set every single day in that capacity made me just really dig into the professional responsibilities. So that's the
Yeah,
only thing that felt daunting. But then
gotcha.
once I sort of got the rhythm of that and understood my own voice, it felt really empowering and very very lovely.
Wow. And I feel like there's such a specific language too, with and a rhythm to a Shonda Rhimes show, and Shondaland is like this institution at this point. And I actually feel like Vivian is a typical kind of Shonda lead character where she's very good at her job, but she can also be kind of messy and complicated and
Sure.
neurotic and all these different things.
Yeah, yeah.
And I was wondering how much you felt like you had to sort of adapt to that style and just what it's like to be a lead of a Shonda show like this.
Yeah, I'm the type of actor who approaches every character for what the character is. Um, you know, Shonda's so good at doing the same thing for her characters. She really, really cares about them as people and motivational, beings and not motivation, motivated beings, and very round and not necessarily completely um, like put in a box. She
Right.
understands that humans have very multiple facets to them, and she loves writing for humans, and so that's why um, it felt like a really wonderful, well worn glove to just be able to have those words, know that she chose those words on purpose. And so then if I had a question, she'd thought about it. It wasn't like, I don't know. It's something I wrote and I don't care. And what do you think? It was like, yeah, I chose that line because this is what I think Vivian would do. And this is where I thought she was at. And I'm like, yes, I love approaching the character with her that way. Um, yeah, and you're right. She was sort of messy. The first episode, David Frankel was directing, and I remember I was so nervous about. I just was like, where am I going to put my bag? Like she wouldn't just put her bag on the floor. And he's like, I think she's sloppier than you. And I went, of course, like of
There you
course.
go.
Remind me, good actor, that it's not always what I would do, right? So
Mhm.
it really helped me to get into the framework and the mind of who Vivian was on kind of that nuance level, especially since she does live in Brooklyn like I do, and we're the same age and kind of in the same phase of our motherhood and things. It was really delicious to find those more nuanced differences that
Right.
that could really drop me in.
Hmm. Well, speaking of that, I mean, this is loosely based on Jessica Pressler, who wrote the famous article on Anna Delvey. I was reading a few other interviews, and you said you wanted to capture her essence, but not necessarily to do like an impression.
Right.
So, what were the sort of main attributes that you keyed into that were actually consistent with maybe the real Jessica?
Yes, it was really important to us that she was, you know, as, probably the most fictionalized of any of our characters, just because we were really getting into the characters' kind of foibles and victories and choices, and we didn't want to sort of, step into Jessica's kitchen too much on that. We wanted to allow Jessica the freedom to produce and to see this story unfold through a fictional lens. So that was entrusted to me, and I appreciated that so much. So what I did was, what mattered to me was what was important to Vivian, because I felt like that was going to be similar to what was important to Jessica, because really the most exact character we have in our show that is from real life is the article. Right? And so everything kind of revolved around the making of the article, and if that's what Vivian so cared about, I had real text and real bylines and a ton of notes to draw from that Jessica had written when the article meant that much to her. So yeah, it was that was the corollary that I drew, and I feel like somebody who dedicates themselves to the written word and to capturing story would really convey what I needed through the printed word.
Gotcha. Well, that's very helpful, a helpful guide. But also what really stuck out to me is just the physicality of your performance. And I think you just tap into a kind of exhaustion of being a journalist at one of these, especially one of these big news magazines. Plus you have the fact that she's pregnant. I mean, how much of a challenge was that in terms of just bringing the right amount of energy to the part, but also not like burning out at the end of the day?
Yeah. Well, you know what? It was definitely on my mind. The physicality of the different bumps and the different undergarments and prosthetics that we needed in order to do the pregnancy at the most genuine stages. It was definitely a part of how I had to be careful of the way I was walking in my real life. Like if I got a massage, I told him I'm playing a pregnant woman. You do bring these things into your own body, and that's part of the responsibility of an actor, is to go, okay, how is this living on my body each day, which is different from how I personally live, because it affects you. You're doing a show 8 shows a week. If you're doing 8 shows a week and your character limps or something, then that's going, or you're like me, had to do the splits every day, like in a show. It's going to affect the way that you grow. You're spending a lot of your time doing that. So yeah, we costumes and I were worked really closely with our directors as well, of what stage the pregnancy was at any given time, and that had to be the really important filter for everything else that I was playing, because that's the way it is when you're pregnant anyway. You might not be thinking about it, but your body's thinking about it. So yeah, we had to nail that every time.
Yeah, well, I mean, the episode where we see Vivian giving birth and then also basically giving birth to her article at the same time is really intense, high emotion. I mean, right? Like not only with the birthing scene, but seeing just the process of her writing the piece and just being totally plugged in. Can you just talk about knowing that episode was coming and just how you managed to even get through it?
Yeah, I approached it the same way I would approach any scene, with my process. What does she want? What is she trying to get? How can I activate that? And it's just wild. I'd never done a birth scene before. I've done 2 births in my life. So, but of course, every pregnancy is different. They always say that, but it's really true. None goes the same exact way. And so it was really, we shot so much of that scene. It almost felt like a little bit of a fugue state, just because we were shooting it all day. And Zinga Stewart, our director of that, I felt nailed the intensity and the frenzy there's a frenzy to it, and because that's how Vivian's, labor went, and and yeah, and it's written so well. Like the rhythm of it is written so well. Um, it sort of surprised me as well how much I got into the muscle memory of like being in a gown on the table, like in that with the with the monitor, and like it just you yeah it was wild. I'm so glad that I did have the technique to lean on, because I think otherwise it may have gotten a little even crazier. This way we were still telling our story, and I don't know. I'm proud of everybody of how we did it.
Definitely. Well, another big part of the show is your scenes with Julia Garner, of course, as Anna. And it's almost like I liken it to like a Hannibal Lecter, Clarice Sterling kind of dynamic, where you're trying to get to the bottom of this case, and she's just so enigmatic, and it's just like watching these two people go back and forth, and it's like you're testing each other. It's some of the best part of the show, I think.
Oh, I appreciate it.
So what does Julia give you as a scene partner that helps you in your performance?
That one is a deep well. She is. I am grateful for her. I adore her. I think I couldn't. I really. I thought that she embodied uh, the character of Anna with such thought and care, and I and it's exactly like we both just came to play. We both came to play. We loved it. I just respected her approach so much, and it was like the best days in acting class, honestly, because all you do is sit there with your scene partner trying to get what you want, and you don't know how it'll end up. Like you don't know how it'll end up. And it just was different every time, and that's exactly how I like to work. It was an absolute joy. We had a great time. We had a great time.
Yeah, I think you can tell personally. But then also you have a number of scenes with, I mean, three of the best character actors out there, Anna Devere Smith, Jeff Perry, Terry Kinney, all of them have this just wealth of experience in the industry, TV, film, theater. I mean, how would you describe those scenes and just working with them?
Favorite days. I think the crew got tired of our shenanigans. I mean, we would like, Terry Kinney and Jeff Perry, co-founded Seven Wolf together, so they've known each other for. I mean, they call each other brother. It's the sweetest in the whole world, and I felt privileged to just be invited into that. And then and Anna Devere Smith is, I mean, everything and more you expect. She's just stunning intellect, and her, and when she shows up on screen, you just can't you just dive right in. And I'm just, those days were just fantastic, because it's if you love what we do, I love what I do for a living, they all love what they do for a living, we're all really like dedicated to this. And when that's the way it is, it's like theater games all the time. Like you just, I don't know, Terry Kinney would tell jokes, and they were funny, and and we would just I don't know, just die laughing. It was great. We had a great time.
Yeah, you can tell, like I said, you can really tell like it's infectious in a way. And I mean, the show has been such a sensation since it dropped on Netflix in February. I feel like I always see it. It's in the top 10 of most watched shows still, like all these months later, which is wild. So why do you think that just the world, and I guess by extension Vivian too here, and Jessica maybe, was just fascinated by her and continues to be fascinated by her?
Gosh, I mean, it's sort of, I think the mystery itself is what grabs at you, because it isn't obvious. It isn't, there's certain things that you can start to clue into if you know it well enough. Like if you know the text well enough, like we did on set, you can go, oh yeah, that I see what Anna's doing there. She's doing the same thing that like an old controlling, you know, man would do. He buys you clothes and then he tells you look like crap. Like, oh yeah, I see you, right? But it's not that easy and it's not that simple. Every time somebody tries to peg the friendships or the dynamics or her personality, even Vivian tries to really fit Anna Delvey. Could you? That's the last name. You're telling us all to delve in. Anyway,
Yeah.
but you chose it anyway.
Yeah.
But you know, she even tries to go back to childhood as you would, as we all do, because we're like, no, come on, there's something. You don't just end up the person you are. The person you are is a collection of all of the experiences you've had all the way up till then. So, you know, we are curious. And I think that we're curious because ultimately it really sucks to get the wool or to get the rug pulled out from under you. It sucks. There's the episode, Neff's episode, you know, Alexis Floyd plays so beautifully is I feel like the one where it really drops into like the emotional cost of just being lied to. And it really sucks. Yeah. And I think we all, you know, in this environment where, you know, social media has gotten ahead of us in a lot of ways. It's just a tool, but if you can't understand how to use the tool, then the tool starts to use you, right? And so it's like that's happened to us collectively, you know, in the last several, like maybe the last decade or so, and we've seen some real human cost to it. We've seen some real repercussions, and I think that we ultimately just want to learn more about you know, I think on the initial level, what brings us to it is how can I avoid it? How can I avoid this happening to me? But I think as you go through the story, and I think Shonda and our writers did such a phenomenal job of just never making anything like in a pretty bow. You know, it's really dense and messy, as you said before. And really you start to just learn that like, oh, it's not about avoiding it. It's about there's going to be people in the world who don't have the same values as me. And ultimately, what does that mean to me? And how do I feel about it? And I think that that's not an easy answer to come to. And we dance around all the time, those answers and questions. And this show helps us do that because they're doing the same thing.
Exactly. Well,
that's why I don't know.
Yeah,
also just, you know,
I think it's many things. Yeah.
I think there's also the swashbuckling of it. I think that, you know, watching somebody go and like, you know, do the things that you're told are not the things you're supposed to do, and like, you know, commandeer a huge vessel. Right. You know, it's like a pirate. It's very Errol Flynn. She's like an Errol Flynn. There you go.
I love that comparison. We only have a few minutes left, so really quick before I let you go, we are an awards website. I would love to just look back quick at your Emmy history. Nominated 6 times for Veep. You got to, you know, celebrate with your cast when the show actually won comedy series 3 years in a row. I was actually looking back on YouTube at some of the supporting actress announcements. One of the ones that actually stood out was your first year, I think, which was the same category when Merritt Weaver won.
Merritt won. Oh,
yes.
So great.
Yes. And you were like visibly, I saw you were so excited for her, which is always kind of like heartening to see that.
She's phenomenal in that role. Anyway, yes. She's a phenomenal actress.
I was going to say, I mean, do you have one of those years at the Emmys, whether it was that first time or later on, that just always sticks out in your mind when you look back on that Veep experience?
Well, it has to have been our first win. I mean, you try to tell yourself that like it's not a competition, things don't, you know what I mean, like you do your best work, and if people recognize it, that's beautiful, and thank you. Mel Brooks reading the word Veep, I get teary about it. Like that's that's life. That's my life. That's amazing. It's amazing that I can say that. That's if I had to distill it, that's a pretty phenomenal experience seeing Mel Brooks just say your show.
Yeah. No, you're right. You can't beat that. You'll always have that. So well, for those of you watching, subscribe for more interviews and go to goldderby.com to make your Emmy predictions. Anna, truly, thanks so much for talking with me today.
Thank you. Thanks so much. And thanks for enjoying the show.
Of course.